50, 30, and 20. Those three numbers are keys to your financial success, and in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly why. Alright, so like I said, in this video we're talking about the 50, 30, 20 rule of money. This is a very important rule that everyone should know. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know this. This right here is the key to your financial success. Now, I learned this back in college. I didn't come up with this. It's been around for a long time. I actually don't know who originally came up with it. If you do know, leave a comment below. But I learned this in college from a college professor. I was very fortunate to learn it in college. A lot of professors don't teach this, which they should. And I'm going to go ahead and pass this knowledge on to you today. So, before we get into what this is, there's a few rules you need to know in order to make this work for you. So first up, you need to be calculating your post-tax income for this rule. And your post-tax income is going to be how much you make after taxes. Now, for most people watching this video, you probably have some sort of traditional job where every week or every 2 weeks or every month, depending on how often you get paid, you get a paycheck and your taxes are already taken out of your paycheck. If that's the case, you already know your post-tax income. You just take that at the end of the year, and that's how much you made for the year because they already took the taxes out for you. So after taxes, your post-tax income. Now, if you're doing something like Uber or Postmates or something like that, generally you're seen as an independent contractor, and for most of those types of jobs, they do not take the taxes out for you. They just pay you directly, and at the end of the year, you need to do your own taxes, and you need to set aside money to pay those taxes. So if you're doing something like that, you need to keep that in mind. Everything is going to be after taxes that we're going to use the 50, 30, 20 rule, not before taxes. But for most people, you're just going to have a traditional job. It will already take the taxes out for you. For like this video, for example, I'm going to be making money off of YouTube AdSense for this video. YouTube does not take the taxes out for me, so I have to keep that in mind and take out the taxes afterwards for how much they pay me with AdSense for this video. Next up, we have create your budget. And this one's incredibly important because most people don't do this. It's unfortunate, most people don't have a budget. They just like know how much is in their account. They know how much their bills are, and they're like, oh, I think I got enough money for the month. Don't do that. It's very important that you have a budget. If you don't have a budget, you can make some serious mistakes with your money. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, when I started making some good money, I lived a very frugal lifestyle, and I was spending about 35 grand a year. And then the next year, I started making a lot more money, and without even realizing it, because I wasn't keeping a budget, I ended up spending about $55,000 in just stuff I didn't need. There weren't any big purchases. I didn't buy a new car or anything. I just didn't have a budget. So I didn't realize how much more money I was spending since I had so much more money coming in. So I spent, about 20 grand extra in just ridiculous purchases that I didn't need. And if I had a budget, I would realize that I was spending so much more. So budget is imperative to know exactly how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. You need a budget. And finally, you need to subscribe. For some reason, I don't know why, but this rule doesn't work if you don't subscribe to the channel. Okay, it does work, but I do want you to subscribe, so make sure you subscribe. So with that, let's get into the actual rule. Okay, so let's get into the actual rules, and first up we have needs, which is going to be the 50%. So 50% of your post-tax income should go to cover your needs. And again, this is just a guideline. Perhaps you can't reach this at this point. That's perfectly fine. Maybe you're just starting out, maybe you have minimum wage, and the amount of money you make is just not going to cover all of these, and you need to put 70% of what you actually make, because you're making minimum wage, towards your needs. That's fine. Do what you need to do, but this is just a guideline that you should go towards. So again, 50% is towards needs, and let's cover what these actual needs are, because some people are kind of confused as to what this is. So first up is going to be housing. And we're talking about housing, we're just talking about a roof over your head, some place to be able to sleep at night, keep you warm, so you're not exposed to the elements. We're not talking about some fancy beach house, so you can't be like, oh, I need, $8,000 a month to have my fancy beach house right on the beach in Cabo. That's not what we're talking about. Just a roof over your head to keep you warm. Make sure you don't freeze to death at night. That's what we're talking about housing. Just enough to get by. For food, again, this is just enough to live off of. You can easily live off of less than $100 a week in food. It's absolutely doable, but unfortunately, a lot of people spend a lot more on food because people like to eat out. I've fallen into this mistake myself. People like to go out and get the combo meals at McDonald's or eat at a nice restaurant. That's what we're not talking about with food. when we're talking about needs. We're talking about the bare essentials to keep you alive, you know, some just basic sandwiches, just basic chicken, whatever your needs are just to keep you alive. We're not talking about eating out in restaurants for the food in the needs category. Next up, we have healthcare. Everyone should be taking care of their health. I know when you're younger, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm completely fine, I don't need healthcare. But this is something you don't want to pass up on because, you know, something bad could happen to you. You get in an accident, you could get some sort of illness, and if you don't have any healthcare coverage, that's really going to screw up all your financials. You're just going to have to be paying a ton of money to get yourself well again. So definitely don't skimp out on healthcare. That's something that should be in the needs category. After that, you have utilities, so all of the bills to keep your electricity on, to keep the heat running, to keep water running so you can take showers and whatnot. Depending on where you live, some apartments that'll be covered in your actual rent payments. Some places that'll be different. If you own your own home, that'll be different. So utilities is something under the needs category as well. And then finally, your minimum debt payments. And it's just the minimum. We'll go over more debt payments later, but you need to be hitting all your minimum debt payments in whatever debt you have. Preferably, you don't want to have any debt, but everyone's got some. I still have some college bills I'm trying to pay off. So you're going to have your minimum debt payments, and you want to make sure you're hitting those every month, at least the minimum, because if you're not, you're going to go into default, and it's going to completely ruin your credit score. Your credit score is very important, and if you don't make your minimum payments, your car payments, you're not hitting your minimum payments, your credit card, you're not hitting your minimum payments, whatever debt you have, if you're not hitting at least the minimum, your credit score will be ruined, and it'll completely ruin your life. You're not going to be able to get any more, any type of car loans or anything going forward. So you definitely need to be hitting your minimum debt payments. And this covers everything in the needs category. So next up, we have the 30% right here, which is going to be your wants. So everything you want, I want that, I want this, those are your wants. Those should be in the 30% of your post-tax income that you should be spending on. So first up in the wants category, we have clothing. Now, obviously, everyone needs clothing. You don't want to be running around naked outside. Unless you live on a nude beach and that's your thing. But for most people, that's not the case. So you're going to need some type of clothing. But the majority of people who are watching this video, I'm going to guess that you probably have clothing. You're probably, hopefully not watching this naked. Most of you probably have clothing. So you should only be spending a little bit on upgrading your wardrobe each year. You don't need to go out every year, get a brand new wardrobe, spend, you know, $20,000 or whatever on clothing. You just need enough to get by. So don't spend a ton of money. For example, this jacket I recently bought a month ago, got it at Kohl's. It was on sale, originally $200. It was 80 bucks. Great price. I decided to buy it, right? I don't need to buy a jacket for $200. If you're into that, you can do that, but I don't want to spend $200 for a jacket, so I bought it over 50% off. Next up, we have your phone. And this is one thing that a lot of people, this really bothers me about a lot of people. A lot of people want to buy a new phone like every single year, right? You got the iPhone 10 and then the iPhone 11 gets released in the next year and you have to go get the new model. I don't know why you need to do that. If you have an iPhone 10 and it's working, why do you need a new phone? I don't understand that at all, but a lot of people like to upgrade their phone every year. And again, if you have enough money, if you're making enough money and you can get that within the 30% rule of your wants, get the new phone every year, I guess you can do that. I don't really know why you need to do that. The majority of people have phones that work just fine, and the reason I know that is because YouTube gives me analytics on the people watching this, and it shows me that over 50% of people who watch my videos are watching on their phones. So I know the majority of you have phones that work, so you really don't need to be upgrading your phone every single year. If you want to, just make sure it fits within the 30% category. Next up, we have restaurants. Again, we talked about food in the other category. That's food that you need just to get by. Every once in a while, people want to go someplace nice, whatever the nice area, whatever the nice restaurant in your area is. I don't know, go to Denny's or whatever. Maybe you like their breakfast platter. You go to restaurants. You don't need to go to restaurants. So that would be something that would be a want that would fit into the want category. Make sure it only comes up to about 30% of your post-tax income. Then you have entertainment. Again, that's going to be anything like going to the movies, video games, whatever you spend money on to be entertained. That would be entertainment. And then finally, vacations would be in the want category as well. Nobody needs to go to Cabo. I'm sure a lot of people want to, but you don't need to do that. So obviously that would be in the wants category as well. And finally, let's talk about the 20%, the final 20%, and that's going to be for saving and investing your money. Again, you don't need to follow these rules exactly. This is just a guideline to go by. Personally, I invest about 30%. My wants are down to the 20%, but this is just a guideline to go on. So saving investing would be anything from an IRA to a 401k. If you don't know what these are, that's perfectly fine. We'll do later videos because we could write, 20, 30-minute videos on each one of these. So we'll go into these in other videos. But if you don't know what these are, don't worry about that. There's plenty of time to learn about these. But an IRA, a 401k, if you don't have one of those, you want to start investing in the stock market, you can get into an app like Robinhood. I'll have a link below if you want to check out Robinhood. That's a great way to get into investing in the stock market if you don't already have an IRA or a 401k. You also have debt repayment. Now, we have debt repayment under savings and investing. We also have that under the needs. Again, you need to be making your minimum payments every month. That's going to be under your needs. But above that, that would be over the investing. And I put that under this because the more debt you pay off, the more money after it's paid off you're going to be having to keep for these other two after you pay off your minimum payment. After the payments start to go down, you'll have more money that you can keep every single month. So debt repayment would be under the save and invest as well. But remember, your minimum payments, you need to be under the 50% to make sure you don't go into default in any of your debt. And then finally, your emergency fund. Anyone can run into trouble. Maybe you get sick, maybe you lose your job, whatever. You can't find a job for a few months. So everyone needs to have an emergency fund. Maybe your car breaks down and you need to, have thousands of dollars of repairs or potentially get another car. So everyone needs to have an emergency fund, and potentially I recommend that you have at least 3 months of your income. So whatever you need to get by for 3 months, that's how much your emergency fund to start should be. You obviously want to build that over time. But if you need like $3,000 a month to live off of, you would need $9,000 in your emergency fund. Again, that's just a goal to go by. And one thing I want to mention, the majority of people don't do this. They don't invest any money into themselves at all. They spend the majority of their money in their wants. What they want a new phone, they want to go on tons of vacations, they want a giant 60-inch flat screen TV. So keep that in mind. If you're actually doing this, if you're actually putting any money into savings and investing, automatically you're doing better than the majority of people in America, because the majority of people aren't putting any money in this. So if you do this, you're doing a great job. Even if it's not as much as you want, even if it's just a little to start, if you're doing this 20%, you're doing a great job. So there you go. That's the 50-30-20 rule of money. I hope this helped you. Hopefully, if it did, you can pass this along to other people. Be sure and share this video so other people can see it as well. Thanks, everyone. If you're new here, be sure and subscribe as well. We have great content coming out 5 days a week. Thanks, everyone, and have a fantastic day.